Ah, welcome back, you beautiful disasters, you walking psychological anomalies, you souls too complex for their comfort zones. Let's talk about something they don't want you to know, something they're desperately trying to bury in classified files and redacted reports, somewhere in a government building, in a sterile office with no windows and fluorescent lights that hum like dying insects. There's an analyst who was assigned to monitor you, to track your patterns, to predict your next move, to document your behavior like you're some kind of case study. And guess what happened? He broke. Not you, him. The professional observer, the trained psychologist, the one with clearance levels and protocols and years of studying human behavior. He's the one who couldn't handle what he saw when he looked at you for too long. They thought it would be routine, didn't they? Another subject, another file, another predictable human being, following predictable patterns, making predictable mistakes, living a predictable life that fits neatly into their models and algorithms and behavioral charts. But then they assigned someone to actually watch you, to really study the way you move through this world, to analyze how you process pain and betrayal and isolation, to document how you survive things that should have destroyed you 3 times over. And that analyst, that poor trained professional with his degrees and his protocols and his clinical detachment, he started seeing something that didn't fit any framework he'd ever learned. He started noticing patterns that violated every rule of human psychology. He watched you transform trauma into fuel, watched you evolve in real time, watched you do things that shouldn't be possible according to everything he thought he knew about the human mind. Let me paint you the picture, because this is where it gets beautiful in the darkest possible way. This analyst, let's call him what he is, a professional stalker with government approval. He started his assignment like any other, confident, methodical, probably even a little bored at first. He pulled up your file, scanned your history, made his initial notes, set up his monitoring systems, prepared his psychological baseline assessment, all standard procedure for someone trained to dissect personalities like they're lab specimens. But then something shifted. He started noticing that you don't react like other subjects. You don't follow the patterns that 99.9% of humanity follows when faced with stress, betrayal, loss, isolation, the things that break normal people. Instead, you do something they can't explain. You adapt. You evolve. You transmute. You become something different every time they think they've figured you out. And it terrified him because he realized he wasn't observing a subject. He was witnessing a phenomenon. Every day he logged into his systems, pulled up his surveillance feeds, reviewed his behavioral notes, and every day the cognitive dissonance grew stronger, louder, more unbearable. His training told him humans break under pressure. They crumble. They become predictable in their desperation. They follow clear psychological patterns that can be mapped and manipulated and controlled. But you kept doing the impossible. You kept surviving what should have destroyed you, kept thriving in conditions designed to break you down, kept evolving beyond what his models predicted was possible. And the worst part for him, the part that really shattered his carefully constructed worldview, was watching you do it all without any of the support systems, safety nets, validation, or external resources that psychology says humans need to survive trauma. See, they sent him to study you. But what happened instead is you became the teacher he never asked for. Every time he thought he understood your breaking point, You revealed there was no breaking point, just transformation points, evolution points, upgrade points that you triggered through sheer force of will and necessity. He watched you lose everything that normal psychology says humans need to maintain sanity and stability. And instead of collapsing into predictable patterns of dysfunction, you rebuilt yourself into something his textbooks never mentioned, his professors never described, his training never prepared him for. You became the glitch in every system, the exception that proves the rule is bullshit, the living evidence that humans are capable of far more than the institutions want to admit. And that realization, that slow, horrifying realization that maybe everything he'd been taught was a lie designed to keep people manageable, that's what broke him. So now, after months of watching you, months of trying to fit you into frameworks that kept shattering under the weight of your reality, months of losing sleep because his observations contradicted everything he thought he knew about human psychology and limitation and control, he did something unprecedented in his field. He requested a psychological evaluation, not for you, but for himself. He went to his superiors, the ones who assigned him to monitor you in the first place. And he essentially said, "I can't do this anymore. Watching this person has fundamentally altered my understanding of reality, and I need someone to evaluate whether I'm still mentally fit for this work, because what I'm witnessing shouldn't be possible, and yet it keeps happening. And I don't know if I'm losing my mind or if everything I was taught is fundamentally wrong." Think about that for a second. Really let it sink in. The trained professional broke before you did. They sent a psychological warfare specialist to monitor you, and you psychologically disarmed him without even knowing he existed, without trying, without caring, just by being authentically yourself in your raw, unfiltered survival mode. He came equipped with every tool, every technique, every manipulation tactic designed to understand and predict human behavior, and you rendered all of it useless simply by refusing to be predictable, by refusing to fit into neat categories, by refusing to break in ways that make sense to people who've never been through what you've survived. You didn't fight him, you didn't resist him, you didn't even acknowledge his existence. And that absolute indifference to being observed, that complete lack of performance for an invisible audience, that authentic existence that doesn't change whether someone's watching or not, that's what destroyed his confidence in everything he thought he understood about psychology and human nature and control. Let's go deeper, because this rabbit hole is bottomless and beautiful in its darkness. This analyst, he started noticing things about you that made him question not just his training, but the entire framework of institutional psychology. He watched you experience betrayal from people you loved, and instead of developing trust issues like his models predicted, you developed discernment, the ability to see through people's masks faster, to identify authentic connections quicker, to protect your energy more efficiently. He watched you lose opportunities that should have devastated you. And instead of spiraling into depression like the statistics suggested, you pivoted, adapted, found alternative paths, created opportunities where none existed, proved that resilience isn't just bouncing back, but bouncing forward into territories his maps didn't even chart. He documented instances where you should have sought validation, should have craved approval, should have needed external reinforcement to maintain your sense of self, but instead, you kept building your identity from internal sources, from your own values, from your own experiences, from your own understanding of who you are, regardless of what anyone else thinks or says or believes about you. And that self-sufficiency, that emotional independence, that ability to exist fully without needing constant validation from others, it violated everything modern psychology teaches about human social needs and attachment theory, and the fundamental requirement for external validation to maintain psychological health. You were proving that maybe humans don't need what the institutions say they need. Maybe the dependency they teach is manufactured. Maybe the frameworks are designed to create weakness, not explain it. Every week, he filed his reports, and every week the cognitive dissonance grew stronger because his observations contradicted his conclusions. The data violated the models. The reality refused to match the theory. He'd write about your isolation, expecting to document deterioration. But instead, he had to report evolution, transformation, strengthening, the exact opposite of what happens to normal subjects under similar conditions. He'd analyze your responses to stress, expecting fight or flight patterns, but discovering something else entirely. A third option his training never mentioned: transform and transcend, the ability to alchemize pressure into power, to convert pain into progress, to use stress as fuel rather than letting it be destructive. And each report became harder to write because he knew he was documenting something that shouldn't exist according to every psychological model he'd ever studied. Then came the moment that really shattered him, the observation that made him realize he wasn't qualified to analyze you. Nobody was qualified because you weren't operating within normal human parameters anymore. He noticed that you'd stopped seeking closure from people who hurt you, stopped needing explanations from those who betrayed you, stopped wanting apologies from those who wronged you, and the psychological community would label that as avoidance or denial or unhealthy coping. But he watched long enough to see the truth. You weren't avoiding anything. You'd transcended the need for it. You'd evolved beyond requiring external resolution to achieve internal peace. You'd figured out that closure is something you give yourself, not something you wait for others to provide. And that realization, that level of psychological autonomy, it's not supposed to be achievable without years of therapy and professional guidance. Yet there you were, doing it organically through sheer necessity and survival instinct. He watched you cut people off without explanation, without drama, without revenge, just clean surgical removal of toxicity from your life. And his training screamed that this was cold, emotionally stunted, unhealthy detachment. But the longer he observed, the more he realized it was actually the healthiest thing he'd ever witnessed. The ability to recognize what doesn't serve you and remove it without guilt or second guessing, or the need to justify your boundaries to people who wouldn't respect them anyway. You weren't being cold. You were being clear. You weren't being cruel. You were being protective of your own energy and peace. And there's nothing in his psychological training that prepares analysts for observing someone who's mastered self-protection without becoming defensive, someone who's achieved boundaries without building walls, someone who's found peace without needing permission. But here's where it gets truly fascinating, the part that really made him question his sanity and request that evaluation. He started noticing that the more he studied you, the more his own life fell apart. Not because you were doing anything to him, not because you even knew he existed, but because watching you live authentically made him realize how inauthentically he'd been living. How much of his own life was performance? How many of his own choices were made to please others or fit in or maintain approval or avoid conflict? You became a mirror he never asked for, reflecting back the uncomfortable truth that he'd spent his entire life following rules and seeking validation and building a career on understanding human behavior, while never actually living authentically himself. And that realization, that sudden awareness that he'd been studying human psychology without ever truly understanding his own, that he'd been analyzing others while remaining a stranger to himself, that broke something fundamental in his professional identity. His colleagues started noticing changes in him, asking if he was okay, commenting that he seemed distracted or distant or different somehow. He couldn't explain to them that watching you had fundamentally altered his perception of what humans are capable of, what psychology really is, what freedom actually means. He couldn't tell them that monitoring you had made him realize that most of institutional psychology exists not to free people, but to manage them, not to unleash potential, but to contain it within acceptable parameters, not to foster true mental health, but to maintain social conformity disguised as wellness. These were dangerous thoughts for someone in his position, career-ending revelations that he couldn't voice without destroying his credibility. So he kept filing his reports while internally unraveling, kept maintaining his professional facade while privately experiencing a complete paradigm shift in his understanding of human nature and institutional control. The final straw, the observation that made him finally request that psychological evaluation, came when he realized you'd stopped playing any games entirely. Not just the obvious manipulation games that toxic people play, but all games, the social performance games, the status-seeking games, the validation-chasing games, the comparison games, the approval-seeking games. Every subtle and not so subtle game that humans play to feel significant or superior or secure or seen. You'd somehow exited the entire gaming system while still existing within society, and that shouldn't be possible. People who reject social games become isolated outcasts, but you seem to be thriving in a different dimension entirely, operating by different rules. Or maybe no rules at all. Just authentic response to life without the need to strategize or manipulate or perform. And watching that level of genuine freedom, that complete absence of psychological game playing, it made him realize he'd never been free a single day in his life, that every interaction he'd ever had was calculated, every relationship strategic, every choice made with an eye toward how it would look to others or affect his status or maintain his position. So he wrote his request, probably the most honest thing he'd ever written in his professional life. I need a psychological evaluation because extended observation of subject X has resulted in what I can only describe as an existential crisis regarding the fundamental assumptions underlying behavioral psychology. And I'm no longer confident in my ability to analyze this subject objectively because my observations consistently contradict my training. And I'm beginning to question whether my training was designed to understand human behavior or to constrain it. They probably read that request with concern, maybe alarm, definitely confusion, because analysts don't break, subjects break. That's how it's supposed to work. The observer remains detached, while the observed remains vulnerable. But you flipped the script without even trying, without even knowing, just by refusing to be vulnerable in ways that made sense to them, by refusing to break in patterns they could predict and manage and control. And now that analyst sits in mandatory counseling sessions, trying to explain to another psychologist how watching you live your life with complete authenticity and zero need for external validation has made him question everything about his career, his choices, his life, his understanding of human psychology and potential and freedom. He's trying to articulate how someone he was supposed to be analyzing ended up teaching him more about psychology than all his years of formal education. How the subject of his surveillance became his unwitting mentor in authentic living. How the person he was paid to understand made him realize he'd never understood himself. And the therapist evaluating him probably thinks he's experiencing burnout or vicarious trauma or some standard occupational hazard. But the truth is far more profound and disturbing to institutional psychology. He's experiencing awakening. The painful recognition that everything he was taught might be a framework designed to limit human potential rather than understand it. And you triggered that awakening simply by existing outside their frameworks. Think about the poetry of this situation because it's darkly beautiful. They sent someone to study you like you're an experiment, and you turned him into your student without ever knowing he existed. They paid him to monitor you like you're a threat, and you showed him who the real threat was. The institutions that train people to observe and analyze and categorize and control rather than to live and feel and grow and evolve. They gave him tools to dissect your psychology. And you demonstrated that psychology can't be dissected because it's not static. It's fluid, constantly evolving, adapting, transforming in response to life, rather than following predetermined patterns that make institutional observers comfortable. You weren't trying to teach anything. You weren't performing for anyone. You were just surviving, thriving, evolving. And that authentic journey broke through every defense mechanism and professional detachment this trained analyst had built around himself. Now he goes home at night and can't stop thinking about the person he's supposed to be monitoring. Not because you're doing anything dramatic or dangerous or noteworthy by conventional standards, but because you're living proof that humans don't have to be what psychology says they have to be, don't have to need what consumer culture says they have to need, don't have to break where institutions predict they'll break. Your evidence of possibilities, his education never mentioned. Potential, his training never acknowledged. Strength, his models never accounted for. Freedom, his frameworks never imagined possible. And that evidence, that living, breathing proof that the emperor has no clothes, that the psychological establishment might be built on assumptions designed to manage rather than liberate. That's what made him question not just his ability to analyze you, but his entire professional foundation and personal identity. They laugh at you, don't they? Oh, they love to laugh. At your expense. At your pain. At you. Like hyenas circling their prey. Snarling, giggling, waiting for you to fall just one more step so they can pounce. You know the feeling, don't you? That burn in your chest, the one that starts small like a spark, a tiny ember, harmless at first. But then they pour on the fuel, their words, their looks, their silence when you needed anything but silence. And suddenly, that little spark becomes a wildfire. But here's the thing they don't understand about fire. It doesn't just burn the weak. It doesn't just consume the helpless. Fire, oh, it changes things. It melts, reshapes, and destroys. And you were the perfect kindling. They thought you were a joke, a toy, a victim, someone to step on. They never thought for a second never dared to imagine that you might be something more. Tell me, have you felt it yet? That shift? That moment where the laughter doesn't sting anymore? No, no, no. It starts to fuel you instead. A quiet voice inside whispers, let them laugh. Just wait until I'm done. Because monsters? Oh, monsters aren't born. They're created, brick by brick, insult by insult, scar by scar. And they did it to you. They built you. They molded you. And now they can undo what they've done. So here you are, standing on the edge. No more tears. No more apologies. No more begging for scraps of respect. They wanted a victim, but instead, oh, my friend, they've created a monster. Nobody starts out broken. No, no, no. They break you. Slowly, piece by piece. It begins so small, doesn't it? A snide comment here, a shove there, a laugh that cuts deeper than any blade ever could. And at first, you tell yourself it's nothing. You brush it off. They don't mean it. You lie to yourself because the truth is too heavy to carry. But the truth doesn't go away, does it? It festers, it grows. And then they come closer. The ones you thought you could trust. The ones who were supposed to have your back. Family, friends, lovers. The ones who smile to your face and twist the knife when you're not looking. Oh, they're the worst, aren't they? Because their betrayal, that one stays. The world teaches you early, doesn't it? To stay in line, to shrink yourself, to keep your head down and take it. The injustice becomes the air you breathe. The humiliation becomes the water you drink. And every time you try to rise, every time you even think about standing tall, someone's there to push you back down. And so you adapt. You wear their labels like chains. Loser, weakling, nobody. You tell yourself they're right, because that's what they want, isn't it? To see you believe their lies, to see you defeated. But let me tell you something about chains. They don't last forever. No, they rust, they weaken, and one day, oh, one beautiful day, they snap. You weren't born a victim, they made you one. But here's the thing about victims. They remember every word, every slap, every goddamn scar. And what they forget becomes your fuel. So tell me, do you feel it yet? That fire rising? It's not too late, you know. To take all that pain, all that betrayal, and forge it into something sharp. Something they'll never forget. They thought they broke you. But oh, they were just building the storm. There's always a moment. One moment. The kind you don't see coming until it hits you like a freight train. You've been holding it together, haven't you? Smiling through clenched teeth. Nodding when you should have screamed. Swallowing it all. The insults. The failures. The endless parade of not good enough. You told yourself you could take it, that you'd be fine, But then it happens. Maybe it's one word too many, a shove that sends you just far enough, a laugh that echoes in your skull like a bomb going off. Or maybe it's the silence. The moment you look around and realize nobody's coming to save you. It's that tiny crack in your soul, the one they've been hammering at for years. And then, snap! The breaking point isn't loud. Oh no, it's quiet, like the eye of a storm. There's no sound, no chaos, just emptiness. You stare at the pieces of yourself scattered around you and think, this is it. This is how it ends. But here's the thing about endings. They're also beginnings. In that silence, something stirs. A flicker, a whisper. The part of you they didn't see. The part they couldn't kill. And it's angry. Oh, it's furious. Because you've given everything, haven't you? Your tears, your time, your heart. And for what? To be discarded like trash? To be forgotten? No, not anymore. Every monster has its trigger, a moment that flips the switch, when the pain turns to rage, when the hopelessness burns away, leaving something cold and unrelenting in its place. That's when you stop crying. That's when you stop begging. And that's when they realize, too late, that they've made a terrible mistake. Because now you're done being their victim. Now you're the one they should fear. They say pain breaks people, that it leaves them shattered, hollow, crawling in the dirt, but they forget. Pain is also a forge. And me? Oh, I've been burning in it for years. At first I fought it. I begged for it to stop. Prayed for mercy. Tried to hold on to who I was. But mercy never came. So I stopped praying, stopped hoping, and I let it consume me. Something changes when you stop running from pain, when you stop fearing it. Suddenly it's not the enemy anymore. It's a teacher, a weapon, a fire that melts away weakness, burns away the guilt, and leaves you sharper, harder, stronger. And here's the punchline, they gave it to you. Every cruel word, every betrayal, every scar. They handed you the tools to become unstoppable. All you had to do was pick them up. Oh, I know what you're thinking. What about who I used to be? That version of you? The kind, soft, trusting fool? They killed that person, buried them. And now, it's your turn to rise from the ashes. But don't rise as who you were. No, no, no. Rise as something they don't recognize, something they can't control. Become the thing they'll whisper about in the dark, the one they'll fear even when they don't see you coming. You want to feel powerful, don't you? Then stop apologizing for what this world has made you. Stop clinging to the chains they wrapped around you. Your suffering? It isn't your shame. It's your edge. So, sharpen it. Use it. Embrace it. Because if the world insists on making monsters, you might as well be the one they'll never forget. They told you pain was a weakness, didn't they? Something to hide, something to silence. They said it would ruin you, break you. drag you into the dark. But they never told you the truth, did they? Pain isn't the enemy. It's the forge. Think about it. What happens to steel when it's thrown into fire? It doesn't crumble. No, it gets stronger, sharper, deadlier. And you? Oh, you're the steel. They just don't know it yet. You've carried it all, haven't you? The anger, the rejection, the grief. It feels heavy, like a chain wrapped around your chest, pulling you down. But what if it wasn't a chain? What if it was fuel? Close your eyes. Remember every insult, every laugh, every door slammed in your face. Feel the burn in your veins. That's not just pain. That's energy. Raw, untapped, waiting to be unleashed. You see, pain has a purpose. It's not there to destroy you. It's there to reshape you, to strip away everything unnecessary, every illusion, every lie you've told yourself about who you are, until all that's left is the truth. And the truth? Oh, the truth is that you are stronger than they ever imagined. Anger isn't just rage, it's focus. Rejection isn't just hurt, it's clarity. Grief isn't just loss, it's power. Every scar you carry, every ache in your soul is a tool. You just have to learn to wield them. Start small. Use the anger to drive you forward. Let rejection push you to prove them wrong. Turn grief into a reminder of what you've survived. With every step, you take their weapons and make them yours. Because pain is a forge. And you're becoming a masterpiece. So you've changed, have you? Grown sharper. Stood taller. They see it now, don't they? That fire in your eyes, that edge in your voice, and what's their first reaction? Fear of, oh, they'll never admit it outright. No, no, no. They'll mask it with other words. You've changed. You're too much. Who do you think you are? But deep down, they're trembling because you're no longer the person they could control. You see, the world loves to keep you in a box, a small, comfortable box where you don't ask for too much, don't challenge too much, don't be too much. They built that box for you, and they liked it when you stayed inside. But now you've shattered it, and the pieces, oh, they're sharp, aren't they? Sharp enough to cut them. The moment you fight back, they'll turn on you. They'll call you names, say you're selfish, arrogant, dangerous. Why? Because you dared to stop playing the role they wrote for you. You dared to rewrite the script, and people hate that. They hate seeing someone they thought they knew become something they can't predict, something they can't control. But here's the joke. They're not fighting you because you're wrong. They're fighting you because you're right. Let them push. Let them resist. It's proof you're on the right path. Because the world doesn't fight the weak. It doesn't waste its time on those who don't matter. No, it fights those who disrupt the system. Those who remind it that its chains can be broken. So let them hate you. Let them fear you. You don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them your silence. You've stopped being their victim. And now they'll have to live with the monster they've created. They called you a monster, didn't they? Whispered it behind your back, shouted it to your face, like it was supposed to hurt, like it was supposed to make you crawl back into the shadows. But here's the thing. Monsters don't hide. They don't bow. They don't apologize. Oh no, monsters rise. And why shouldn't you? After everything they've done, after the years of swallowing your voice, shrinking yourself, playing by their rules, they had their chance, didn't they? They had the soft version of you, the one that begged to be loved, to be accepted. And what did they do? They spit on it. They broke it. So now they get what's left. The raw, the real, the untamed. You've been told your darkness is something to fear, something to bury. But what if it isn't? What if it's your armor, your strength, your truth? Because the world isn't kind to the soft, the gentle, the forgiving. No, it eats them alive. But you've learned to bite back. Let them call you a monster. Let them choke on the word. Because they're right, aren't they? You're not like them anymore. You don't play by their rules. You don't fit into their perfect little mold. But you know what? That's the point. Monsters don't fit in. Monsters don't follow. Monsters don't kneel. So stop apologizing. Stop explaining. Stop holding back the parts of you they're too afraid to face. You don't owe the world your submission. You owe yourself the freedom to be exactly what they fear. They wanted a monster? Fine. Then show them what one truly looks like.